Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority to drive out evil spirits and to heal every disease and sickness.
The Bible contains remarkable stories of miracles and divine interventions. Moses parted the sea. Peter healed a man lame from his mother's womb. Jesus drove demons out of people and raised others from the dead. But are these types of events still happening today?
We too have a beam of divine light and guidance that God has put within the heart of every man. And it's one of the greatest proofs that there is a God.
More amazing supernatural things are happening than we realize.
This is Divine Intervention, the interview show that features intriguing people who've experienced the hand of God in amazing ways. Divine Intervention was created and produced with the purpose of encouraging believers, spiritual seekers, and skeptics alike that Jesus is alive and is still performing miracles and working in the world today.
I believe in miracles.
Here's your host, Daniel Fazina.
Hello, friend, and welcome to Divine Intervention Radio. Yes, I am your host, Daniel Fazina. So excited, inspired, and encouraged that you are taking time out of your schedule to be with me. I really appreciate it, and I don't take that lightly. Thank you again for tuning in to Divine Intervention Radio. As always, I want to remind you that if you like this show and you want to check out some of the archives, you can always do that at divineinterventionradio.com. The shows are posted there. Also on YouTube, youtube.com/Divine Intervention Radio. You can also check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Divine Intervention Radio. And of course, you can follow me, Daniel Fazina, on Twitter at DanielFazina1 on twitter.com. That's at DanielFazina, the numeral 1. Well, friends, as always, I have a very intriguing guest for you that we're going to be introducing you to. His name is Ron Luce, and he is the president and founder of Teen Mania Ministries. He's a sought-after speaker who has traveled to more than 60 countries and has made numerous media appearances, such as on Dr. James Dobson's Focus on the Family radio broadcast, CNN, The O'Reilly Factor, Nightline, The 700 Club, Trinity Broadcasting Network, and Hannity. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology and theology and has a master's in counseling psychology and is the author of 35 books for teens, youth pastors, and parents. He is a cultural powerhouse for the Lord, and his website is JesusGlobalYouthDay.com. That's JesusGlobalYouthDay.com. And it's my pleasure to welcome Ron Luce right now on Divine Intervention Radio. Ron, welcome to Divine Intervention Radio. It's an honor to have you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Daniel. Great to be with you.
Well, I'm very excited to talk to you about your amazing work and your latest book, Resilient, and Global Youth Day, and all the things you have going on. But before we do that, can you take us to the beginning a little bit? Tell us about, who Ron Luce is and maybe how you grew up and how you came to know Jesus in the first place.
Sure. Well, I grew up in California. And my background is I grew up going to every kind of church you can imagine, except all the churches I went to were all dead churches. And my parents were divorced and remarried to different people 3 different times, 3 different people. And so we were, quote-unquote, a Christian family, but not really. I mean, only in name, And so I really hated church. I didn't really want much to do with God. And my parents were divorced from each other when I was about 7, so I hadn't seen my dad many years. And when I was 15, I ran away from my mom to go find my dad. My dad tells me a famous line the very first day I'm with him. He said, "Now, son, if you're going to try to that marijuana stuff, you be sure and bring it home so we can all try it together."
Nice, Dad.
That mom. And I remember somewhere in the good book it said you're supposed to obey your parents, And
right.
So I figured it was time for selective obedience. So I brought it home, and him and me and my stepmom were getting high. I've become a party animal for a year or so, and a friend invites me to church. So I'm like, sure, I'll go. God's cool, I'm cool, we'll get along fine, so you can see I was arrogant. So I go to this church, and it's on fire. I mean, I'd never been in a church like this before. People are crying and singing, and I'm like, what happened to these people? And then the guy got up to speak, the pastor, and he just spoke regular words, like I could understand him. And he's telling about Jesus. I'm thinking, why have I never heard this before? I've been in church my whole life. I never heard this. I felt like I've been lied to my whole life in church. So I get turned on to the Lord, and I'm just full on. I go back to my school, try to tell all my friends that were all heathens about Jesus. And, the problem is when you're excited about Jesus but you don't know how to talk about him, you actually get people freaked out, and that's what I was doing.
You had a lot of zeal, maybe, but not a lot of knowledge.
Lambs anymore, because Jesus is like the big lamb, and his blood gets on us, and we're clean, and people are freaking out. What happened to you, man?
Ron, I want to ask you, what was different about this particular pastor or preacher? What did he say that you hadn't heard in all these other churches?
First of all, it was how he said it. He didn't use a bunch of Christianese and theology language. He just talked normal verbiage, and so a regular person could understand. And I felt like, like a lot of people. It seemed like to me, my whole life, pastors had this code language, Chinese, Japanese, Christianese kind of thing that only Christians could understand. And I didn't understand anything they were saying.
Okay.
So finally, he was a normal guy, without a preacher voice kind of a thing, and using normal words. And I thought, well, this makes all the sense in the world. Why wouldn't everybody want to do this?
Okay.
And so, yeah, I just get on fire for the Lord. And it was just the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. School just gotten out. I came home one day to my dad's house just 3 weeks after I got turned on to the Lord, and my stuff from my bedroom was on the front porch, and the door was locked. I thought, what's going on? I knock on the door. We live in the country. The door is never locked. And my younger brother, who's bigger than me, comes to the door and says, you can't come in. I said, what are you talking about? I live here. He goes, well, not anymore. I said, why is my stuff out here? He said, Dad said you have to leave.
What?
Well, why? He says, well, my stepmom, he says, Mom says you're too much of a Jesus freak, and either she's leaving or you're leaving, so Dad chose you.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, leave? I'm not even out of high school. Where am I going to go? He goes, I don't know. I just can't let you in. So I packed up my stuff and, put into my piece of junk car. And, when you're 16, you don't have that much. I'm only 16 years old. You got a clock, radio, and weights or something. And I'm driving away, and I'm crying, and I'm praying. I'm like, God, they never got mad at me for getting drunk or high. Now I'm trying to live pure, and I don't have a place to live. I don't know where I'm gonna be. And so it was a great moment for me and the Lord, like, are you doing this out of convenience or not, kind of thing. And I ended up staying for a couple weeks on, couch surfing with friends I'd met at church, in college students and stuff. And my pastor, my new pastor that, I just started going to this church, found out I got kicked out, and my 17th birthday was coming up. So he invited me to his home to have dinner, a birthday dinner with him and his family. And I was so scared because I didn't even know pastors lived in houses where they lived. And I was afraid to be on my best behavior. I was a raw heathen, I was really raw. And so I thought I did pretty well. They gave me a little gift and everything. And until the next day, I got a call at work, a message that said, the pastor wants to see you in his office after work today. And I work construction, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? What did I say? I was racking my brain. I must have really blown it. He wants me to see me in his office, like holy, where he meets with God. Tell him about me. I was so afraid. And so I go to meet with him after work that day, and it was there the pastor invited me to come live with him and his family for my senior year of high school.
Wow.
And it was amazing. And this man is a great man of faith, because he had 3 beautiful teenage daughters, and he's inviting me to come live with him. And so, he's a man of great faith, and it really changed my whole life, the trajectory of my life, where I learned what a Christian family looks like and feels like and acts like, and a husband and wife that love each other. These people are still closer, like my second family today. The girls are all like my sisters. There's a little brother who's like a brother to me now. Wow. And I like to share that story because he took a risk.
Sure did.
Me, and it's really going to take a risk from the older generation on behalf of the younger generation if we're ever going to really reach them effectively.
That is amazing. What a great story of faith, in action, and love in action. That's what Jesus would want to do. And it's interesting that, a lot of times in the Bible, Jesus warns us that, you're going to face persecution, you're going to lose everything because of me, the world's going to hate you. But in America, we don't really hear too much about people, getting kicked out of their houses when they choose to follow the Lord. That's something we hear a lot about in, the Middle East or foreign countries. But to hear that it happens in America too, that was kind of a surprise to me and maybe to our listeners as well. But very encouraging to know that Jesus walked before us. He was homeless. He got kicked out of the temples and all of that, and his followers did too, and he warned us for that.
Right.
And you had to walk through it at a very young age, so I'm impressed that you were able to do that, and you kind of learned what it's like. You counted the cost, I guess, and you experienced it really early on.
It's a lot of grace and favor. I mean, I don't really think that I did. It wasn't credit to me. It was we have kind of this false, I think, theory that as soon as you give your life to Jesus, everything will be easy,
Right.
And you look at the disciples' life, it wasn't easy, and sometimes we like to go, well, God, where are you in all of this? And it's these kinds of challenges that we face that really refine our faith and are pivotal moments in our life. In like, are we doing this out of convenience or conviction kind of thing?
Right.
And
right.
So it was actually really good for me, even though it's like what the enemy meant for harm, God meant for good kind of thing, like Joseph, kind of thing. And it was really great. And so I think that's why Paul said, rejoice when you're persecuted and things like this, and all through Philippians where he's being persecuted and in jail. Look at all the fruit that's come from this. Whatever somebody might be going through right now, even no matter how dark it might feel right now, you not to deny that it's hard, but it can be a fantastic silver lining in the building up of your own faith that is can be gotten in no other way.
That's right. Wow. Good stuff. Friend, you're listening to Divine Intervention Radio, and we are visiting with our special guest, Ron Luce, and his website is JesusGlobalYouthDay.com. Ron, what happened going forward from there? I mean, you're on fire for the Lord. You get to see what a Christian family looks like. Tell me about some of the things the Lord did in your life from that point going forward. Like, did you have any other amazing answered prayers or interventions where you just felt God working in your life?
Well, one of the things that really shaped me early on is after I had run away from home, not long after that, my mother was getting a divorce from her third husband, and I had to go back and testify against my mother, all the things that how she treated us.
Oh my gosh!
That's when we were little, and so it was before I was Christian and everything, and it was just in that year of being a party animal. So I'm telling the judge everything she'd done. She got all of her children taken away from her. She moved by herself to Las Vegas, and I thought, good, that you wrecked my life. Now, how does it feel? Well, then fast forward, I give my life to the Lord. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to love my mom. I need to, forgive my mom. And I was so mad at her, I didn't want to forgive her. And so the Lord really took me through a tender time where, because we always ask why. Why did this happen to me? Why did I have these bruises? Why do I have these horrible memories and things like this? And I remember having this time with the Lord where He said, listen, I didn't want those things to happen to you, and that's not my best for your life or for this world. I'm not in charge of all the bad things that happen, and you need to forgive your mom, and you need to ask your mom to forgive you because you were a rotten kid too. You did some pretty rotten things. And so the Lord starts to do something in my heart. One day I was praying for my mom, and I hadn't seen her since the courtroom, and I lived far away from her now. And I'm praying for her, and I'm like, Lord, reach my mom because I love her. And all of a sudden, something dawned on me. I can't believe it. I love my mom. This is a miracle, because I can never remember telling my mom that I loved her except when I was a little boy and meaning it. I was forced to say it. You tell your mother you love her, kind of a thing.
Oh, wow.
Now I'm like, God, I love my mom. It's a miracle. He really changed my heart. So I thought, I have to call her. So I called my mom, and I hadn't seen her since the courtroom. Remember, I'm 16, just turned 17, not very tactful. So I call her, and she goes, what do you want? I said, I just want you to know I love Jesus now, and I forgive you for all those bad things you ever did for me. She says, you what? And hung up. And I thought I was being generous, I thought she would like to hear that. And I realized that I needed to learn a little bit of tact. And so that began a journey of the Lord repairing our relationship. And finally, she wouldn't take my letters. Back in the day, there's no email. She returned to sender. She wouldn't even open them. She wouldn't take my phone calls. Little by little, she would take a letter and then a phone call, and then finally she let me come see her. And after praying for her for 13 years, she finally gave her heart to the Lord. I mean, she got radically on fire.
Wow.
She, joined every Bible study in the world, got involved in the church, got all new friends, changed her whole personality, her whole demeanor. And she actually just went to be with Jesus. I went to heaven a year ago, and I preached her funeral. And there were some people that only knew her before Jesus, old family members that had been hurt by her. And there were some people there from her church that only knew her after. And the people that knew her after she came to Christ could not believe she was ever like that, because she wanted me to tell the story at her funeral. And then the people beforehand that knew her and were hurt by her could not believe that she had changed and that she was different, because they were no longer in her life. And so it was really a great picture of God's grace. And it turns out that my dad ended up coming to the Lord as well. many years later, went to a Promise Keepers event with him and all my brothers, and after he had seen me preach 1,000 times, seen a million altar calls, never wanted to come to Christ, but at Promise Keepers, when I was just with him as an attendee, I got to go down with him when he gave his life to Christ in front of 50,000 men.
That is amazing. I love hearing stories like that, how God changes people. And one of the biggest miracles, I think, is a changed heart, because people say, oh, can a leopard change his spots? Do people really change? And, with God's help, they can change. I think with man, it's impossible, but with God, all things are possible. And that is evidenced, obviously, by your mom and your family being restored like that. I'm very encouraged and inspired. Friend, if you're listening to this right now and your family is broken, you have loved ones who maybe you think are a lost cause, don't give up. Keep praying for them. Keep witnessing to them. You never know when God is going to choose that moment to change their heart and bring them to himself. And like Ron was saying, it can completely change their lives, change their personalities and everything. And man, I wonder, probably don't, but do you have a recording of your eulogy and what happened at your mom's funeral? I would love to see the reactions of people and get their take on what happened. That's amazing.
We probably do. I'm not sure where it is. One of the hardest things of her funeral was this. When I was trying to still reach her for the Lord, and the Lord kind of put a song in my heart. I wrote a song for my mom, a forgiveness song, and it became, of course, her favorite song. And then later she gave her life to the Lord. She insisted that I sing that at her memorial service.
Wow.
And it was very difficult because, of course, I had to tell the story leading up to it.
Sure.
And then, of course, I couldn't sing it without tears and all that. But it seemed to be very moving, and it was really a beautiful time.
That is amazing. I know that obviously funerals are painful, but in the midst of all that, when we as believers have hope, for the future, the funerals it's not the end. We can look forward to being reunited with our family in the presence of God, and I think that's awesome. I mean, I wonder, I look at the world and see all these people out there who have no idea where they're going, what's going on, they don't know God. How do they live facing the future with that, what I would assume would be a very foreboding feeling? So that's why we're doing our best to get the word out there that, God has a plan for your life. He loves you and he wants to be with you, and the way is through Jesus Christ, as we're talking about here.
Turns out that my stepmother came to the Lord as well, and she's the one that helped me get kicked out of the house. I actually ended up baptizing her, and we became really great friends. And she went to be with Jesus at a very young age, at 32 years old, when I was only 19, and I preached her funeral.
Oh my gosh!
Give their life to the Lord. So, anyways, the Lord really kind of intervened in my life and my family's life, and it's just beautiful.
Evidently, yeah, that's amazing. Friend, again, you're listening to Divine Intervention Radio, and our special guest is Ron Luce. You can check him out at JesusGlobalYouthDay.com, and his latest book is called Resilient. We're going to get to that after the break. But Ron, why don't you tell us how you got into youth ministry in the 5 minutes we have before the break? How did the Lord lead you into that, and what have you been doing with that?
Well, I went away to go to school from California, moved out to Oklahoma to go to Oral Roberts University back in the 80s, right after I graduated from high school, and immediately while I was a student started getting involved in youth ministry. I thought, I'm young and these guys need Jesus, why not hang out with them? And so I got involved with Youth for Christ and doing school clubs, things like that, and a lot of young people came to the Lord. And then after I graduated from university, and I met my wife there, and we got married a year after I graduated, when she graduated, and we just felt really the calling of the Lord to not just reach young people, but I figured if God could reach me, he could get to anybody. But then challenge them to make a difference with their life and go change the world. So we started a ministry that we ran for 30 years called Teen Mania, and we did events all over the country called Acquire the Fire conferences, and then we invited young people to go on mission trips. So we took, over 30 years, we took like 80,000 youth all around the world, for a month at a time or 2 months at a time. The events we did, Acquire the Fire conferences, we saw, a little over 3 million young people come to those events over the years in stadiums and arenas.
That's amazing.
Weekends a year, and city after city after city. And so we learned a lot, but had a lot of grace. It was actually a lot of my background of hurt and brokenness and how Jesus brought me into wholeness that I could use to relate and to share with young people, because so many of them come from broken homes and broken pasts and challenging backgrounds, and just to be able to be vulnerable with them and share that no matter how broken or how busted your past is, Jesus can put your life back together and use you to do great things and go change the world. So that sort of propelled us into what we're doing now with helping churches and leaders around the world reach the young generation, both here in America and all over the world, because we as America have exported our youth culture all around the world. They're watching our videos, watching MTV, listening to our music, and we've literally made it harder for people doing church work and youth ministry all around the world, harder for them to reach the younger generation because they don't know how to break through this Western culture that we've exported. And so that's what Jesus Global Youth Day is all about, and all these years, 3 decades of youth ministry has kind of built this opportunity for us to kind of help churches and leaders all around the world.
That's awesome. And you've had the privilege of having been doing this for 30 years, as you mentioned, so you probably have some perspective. Looking back, have you seen fruit come from this, and what kind of fruit? What's some of the more prominent things that stand out in your mind as a result of your ministry?
Well, by the grace of God, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of young people have come to the Lord, and they've actually, on the mission trips, they were young people who actually led 1 million people to the Lord on these mission trips all around.
Wow.
Lots of miracles and healings and things like this that would go into villages where there's no doctors and no medicine. They would just pray for sick people and watch God heal them. And so, just multiplicity of these kinds of events. And then, of course, our whole prayer is that they would be raised up then to go either to live on the mission field or start churches or make a difference with their life. And so we get contacted all the time by young people they're pastors, they're missionaries, they're in dangerous spots around the world sharing their faith and standing up for Christ, and it's just a beautiful thing to see.
That is wonderful. Wow. I can't wait to hear more on the other side of the break, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. And just wanted to remind you, friend, that you are listening to Divine Intervention Radio. DivineInterventionRadio.com is the website, and our special guest today is Mr. Ron Luce. He's the author of his newest book. It's called Resilient, Bounce Back Stronger No Matter What Knocks You Down. And his website is called JesusGlobalYouthDay.com. We're going to hear more from him right after the break. So please stay with us on Divine Intervention.
You're listening to Divine Intervention with Daniel Fazzina, and we'll return in just a moment.
I believe in miracles.
Hi, I'm Kevin McCullough. You may know me from Fox News Television or talk radio. I talk a lot about things that affect people's lives on a regular basis. And one of the things I've always wondered if people woke up wondering each morning is, could I work for myself? Could I find a business that would allow me to use the skills I have to pursue revenue that I need so that I can build a vision that I have? How would you like to be your own boss with no commute, no alarm clock, no employees or politics or compromises or discrimination? None of that educational requirement, but something positive that actually impacts people's lives. That's the opportunity of Ambit, an energy business that you can not only own now for less than $500, but make lots of money with. Call for your start today at 205-55-AMBIT. That's 205-55-AMBIT, or online at freepowernow.com.
Hey, this is Daniel Fazzina of Divine Intervention Radio. The Bible contains some incredible stories of miracles and divine interventions. Jesus calmed a raging storm, healed paralytics, and even raised the dead. But are these types of events still happening today? The answer to this question, as you will see from reading my book, Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today, is an emphatic yes. Contained within the book is a collection of amazing true stories that attest to this fact. You will read the astonishing first-hand accounts of people who have been healed of paralysis, terminal cancer, and tumors through prayer. You will see the love of God powerfully transform the life of an Islamic terrorist. You will witness the liberation of the demon-possessed, the resurrection of the dead, and much more. Prepare to be awed and inspired as you experience divine intervention. More information about Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today can be found at www.divineinterventionradio.com or by calling 800-247-4788. 4784. That's 1-800-247-4784. Divine Intervention is supported by the Other Perspective Media recording artist, poet Billy Lamont. Poetry, music, film, video, publishing, art, activism, photography, philosophy, Jesus. The Other Perspective 777, a Sacred Art Sensory Experience. More information about poet Billy Lamont's CDs, books, and Other Perspective Media can be found at www.billylamont.com. That's www.billylamont.com. Divine Intervention welcomes the support of Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants is a family-owned and operated Christian business serving their clients with quality accounting services for over 40 years, offering full-service accounting for any type of business, large or small, in any state of the union. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants, 12 Oak Street, No. 5, West Hampton Beach, New York, 11978. Phone 631-288-3334. That's 631-288-3334. First Steps to Success with ABC's secret millionaire, Danny Johnson, gives you the tools to remap your internal beliefs about yourself, about your money, and about others. You'll learn a simple but powerful system to create success in any environment, as well as business building, leadership, sales, and marketing skills to create the lifestyle most only dream about. First Steps to Success with Danny Johnson. More information can be found at DannyJohnson.com or phone 866-760-8255. Times are tough, not getting easier, but there's an opportunity that could make a significant change in your financial situation. People are paying too much for home utilities, and everybody has them. Help friends and family save money and get paid for it. No obligation. You don't even have to talk to anyone unless you want to. Just listen to a 3-minute recorded message. Call now, 715-GET-CASH. That's 715-GET-CASH. Listen, decide, and you could be on your way to a better tomorrow. 715-438-2274. That's 715-GET-CASH.
Hi, this is Ben Kinslow, and you're listening to Divine Intervention Radio, hosted by Daniel Fazina.
Oh, Christ is bigger. Bigger than you. You might mock me for things that I will go through, but Christians never die. Although we sin too much, He saved us all. You back me in a corner, in a box like you think I'm religious, trying to speak the truth, and I don't want to convolute it. God loved this world so much, He sent His only Son. Although I deserve the lashes, although I deserve the sting, I sinned so bad I should have died. If you would listen, give me just an hour, I'd prove what I'm professing.
Welcome back to Divine Intervention Radio. I'm your host, Daniel Fazina. And if you're just tuning in, we are speaking with our special guest, Mr. Ron Luce. He is the author of Resilient, Bounce Back Stronger No Matter What Knocks You Down. And he is also a youth minister. And his website is called JesusGlobalYouthDay.com. Ron, welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Sure. You know, before the break, we were talking about how you have been leading mission trips overseas with youth for the past 30 years, going into many, many different countries. I want to ask you, what was probably, in your mind, the most difficult country to minister in? Or I know each country has its own unique spiritual climate, So what was your impression of the countries you went to, and where was it you think the most difficult or had more spiritual resistance, let's say?
Well, it may not be the country. It's more like, for example, generally, city people are more difficult to reach than people that live in the country or in a village.
Oh, okay.
And so, because city people are more sophisticated, they're busy, they don't want to stop, listen, that kind of thing. However, in some countries, for example, when we first went to India, it was very difficult just to break through the culture and things. But then as we got more adept at how to present the gospel, how to connect with the people better, we saw a lot more fruit in the following years after that. And so it really just depends on what part of the country you're in and how far removed from a concept of God they might be, in terms of, do they know about one creator, do they think there's many gods, things like that. And there's something called an E scale, the Engel scale, that will be helpful for people to understand. Essentially, it's on a fulcrum, and 0 is like, I don't really have any feelings for or against God. And then -10 is, I'm a Satanist, I hate God. +10 is, I'm an on-fire disciple of Jesus. And so the first step is to try to assess, where is somebody on this Engel scale? Like, how close are they to God? Do they really understand? And our goal then, of course, we want them all to be +10, on fire for Jesus, but we might not get them there in one conversation. But if we get them to take a baby step in the right direction, maybe they go from an atheist to an agnostic. If they go from an agnostic to at least maybe they're open to the Lord, that's the goal, is to lead them a little bit closer to the Lord so that the next Christian that comes along can kind of help take the next step.
I gotcha. It's funny that you mentioned going from an atheist to an agnostic, because there is a difference between, let's say, an agnostic and an atheist, and then there's even an anti-theist, which is even more extreme than an atheist, because a lot of the atheists I talk to, they just don't care one way or the other. They just don't have any opinion. But then there's anti-theists who want to go against Christianity altogether and bring it down and have arguments against it and want to fight it actively. So there's all different types of people. I have a really good friend who's I guess he characterizes himself as a non-practicing agnostic, because occasionally he goes to church with me. So anyway, but yeah, there are all types, and there are all types of, like I said, spiritual atmospheres in different countries, and even governments. I'm sure you probably had different challenges with different governments. Some are a lot more friendly towards missionaries than others, and I know India right now is experiencing kind of a backlash against missionaries, and it's becoming, from what I've understood, more difficult to minister in that country. Do you have any recent experiences there?
Yeah, I was just there a year ago, and it really depends. Some regions of India, there's more freedom, and some there's not. And the government itself is sort of a really radical Hindu government, so when Hindus come and persecute Christians, they don't, even though it's against the law to do that, they don't prosecute them or put them in jail or anything like that, so they let them get away with setting churches on fire and things like that. So we need to pray for our brothers and sisters around the world.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. Now, can you tell us about what the Jesus Global Youth Day is all about? Because that's like a multinational effort with a lot of different people, and it's pretty big, so please do tell us about that.
It is. Well, Catholics have been doing something for like 3 decades called Catholic World Youth Day, and it's their effort to keep youth involved in the Catholic Church. And so the leader of the World Evangelical Alliance, who's a friend of mine, Bishop F. Tendero, who's they're in 129 nations, said, Ron, the Catholics have been doing this all these years. Why have the Protestants never done anything like this, a kind of a global campaign to reach and focus on young people? And so that began a conversation probably 6 or 7 years ago, where now we've got this Jesus Global Youth Day happening in Manila. Young people and their leaders, not just youth pastors, but even senior pastors, are coming from all over the world for this 8th, 9th, and 10th of August, this festival, amazing kind of experience with worship from all around the world, speakers from all over the world. But there's also a Leaders Congress for senior pastors to get to hear from other senior leaders all over the world who are doing very well, extraordinarily well at reaching and discipling the next generation. I'm not just talking youth pastors, I'm talking about senior pastors who take responsibility for the younger generation in their city or their town or their village or whatever. And so, so we'll be there, and we have a conference at the same time for youth leaders. And then finally, on the last day, on the 10th, if you just can't come, you can take the free broadcast, pipe right into your church, fill your church with young people, and use it as an opportunity for your young people to be united with youth from all over the world who love Christ, but also use it as an outreach to begin to reach the young people in your community. And so you can get all the information at JesusGlobalYouthDay.com, and be a part of, whether you've got children in your home or you're a leader in your church. Go to your pastor, your youth pastors. Have you heard about this Global Youth Day? You don't want to miss it. You don't want your kids to be missing out on this global historic moment. It was the first time ever that youth all around the world will be united in the name of Christ.
Oh, wow. So this is the debut Global Youth Day?
Correct.
For Protestants and, anyone who wants to follow Jesus, I guess. That's awesome.
That's right. And that's why we called it that. We're not putting up any barriers. We've actually got the Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox Church involved, and other people from even other religions. There are other religions that they don't really like Christians, but they like Jesus. So we're like, great, we'll come hear more about him and learn more about him.
Well, I would think Muslims and maybe Hindus, too, they all kind of have Jesus in their pantheon. Muslims think he's a prophet, obviously, and Hindus, I think a lot of times they just put him in their pantheon as one god of many that they have in there. I actually knew a Hindu family, and they had all these different little idols, and one of the idols was a Christmas tree, and in their little group of statues, they had a Christmas tree, and they had a little crucifix too, and they were just like, yeah, we'll take everything. So
right.
It was very interesting. Anyway, so if you want to get involved, go to JesusGlobalYouthDay.com. That's JesusGlobalYouthDay.com, and be a part of the celebration. Now, is it? It's not only in Manila, right? It's all over. Is that right?
Well, the main event is in Manila, but it'll be broadcast all over the world, and directly into churches. And so you want to get your church and your youth group signed up in advance so we can send you materials, discipleship materials, how to prepare, how to get your church filled with young people. So you just get on the site and you can click very easily, give us your email, and we'll give you all the information at JesusGlobalYouthDay.com.
All right, wonderful. Again, JesusGlobalYouthDay.com. If you're just tuning in, friend, you are listening to Divine Intervention Radio, and I'm your host, Daniel Fazina. DivineInterventionRadio.com is the website there. And our special guest today is Mr. Ron Luce. He is an evangelist and a pastor, a youth pastor, and an author. His latest book is called Resilient, Bounce Back Stronger No Matter What Knocks You Down. Ron, let's talk about your new book. Can you tell me, first of all, what it's about, what the premise is, and why you wrote it?
Well, there's a lot of people that they're kind of convenience-oriented Christians, like I'll follow him whenever everything's going great. And really, if you look at the lifestyle of the disciples, Jesus is in the business of giving us a backbone and making us strong no matter what our circumstances. And so resilient is sort of the word to, how do you become that kind of follower of Christ? Rather than just hoping you stay strong, there's things you can do now while you feel strong, before you face a challenge, before you feel weak or tempted or a circumstance that might challenge your faith. Things you do now, it's kind of like working out. There's a couple chapters in there. For example, I ran a couple marathons, and how I trained to do that. You'd never run a marathon without training for it, and you'd never want to run the race for Christ without really training and preparing for it. There's a lot of scriptures about, fight the good fight of faith, run the race with endurance, things like that. How do you do that spiritually? And there's a whole bunch of metaphors of what we can do to prepare ourselves now, so we don't. A lot of times people slip away or they get disillusioned because they're just not prepared. They haven't been working out. They haven't been preparing for the race of life that Jesus gives us. And then something happens and they're like, oh my gosh, what happened? What am I going to do? And they find themselves either really backsliding or making a big mistake or some bad decisions. And there are things we can do to prepare for that and make sure that we don't accidentally fall into that.
Well, having talked to you now and understanding your beginnings of, as soon as you're getting saved, getting kicked out of the house, I mean, that's kind of like you start training right there. And I'm glad that you were able to persevere through that. But in your book, Resilient, you talk about something that happened to your family that, is probably one of the worst things. Well, for me, being a father, it's one of the worst fears I have is something happened to my daughter, and something really traumatic happened to your daughter and some of her friends. Can you tell us about what happened and then how you kind of worked through that?
Yeah, well, my oldest daughter, Hannah, 7 years ago now, was in a plane accident. She was in a small plane with 4 friends. 2 of them were our staff members heading out to one of our events, and the plane went down, and she was the only survivor.
Oh, my gosh. when I read that, I was just like, oh, it was like a gut punch to me.
Yeah, she witnessed her friends perishing in front of her, and she remembers the whole thing. And so we walked through that with her, where she was in ICU. We didn't know if she was going to make it, and then she had burns on 30% of her body. She had had skin grafts and everything, and she came back home for recovery, obviously, in physical therapy. Challenge to her faith, even our faith. We prayed for protection of our kids and all of our staff and all of this. And really, the question is, what do you do when what you think you believe doesn't make sense anymore? It doesn't seem, your experience, your circumstances don't seem to line up with what you think you believe. And how do you continue to have strong faith when your circumstances disagree with what you say you believe? Maybe your theology is wrong, or is God bad, or what I believe in, is it true? All of that. And so that was part of the impetus for this book, to help people when they face circumstances where, frankly, you have to learn to trust even though you don't understand what's going on. It's really a trust walk with the Lord. And many times afterwards, you can see 20/20 vision. Sometimes you won't until heaven, right? You won't understand something.
Right.
But it's like trusting that in the goodness of God, that even if I don't understand, I will still follow you, because I know that your nature and your character is good, and you have good intentions for me, even if I don't understand what's happening right now in my life.
Amazing. When you got that phone call that your daughter Hannah had been in the plane crash, and then you were rushing to the hospital and arriving there, and when you saw her for the first time, what were you observing, and what was going through your mind? What was that like, that experience?
Well, it was heart-wrenching. I got a call. We all get these random calls from numbers we don't recognize, and I usually don't answer them, but on this day I did, and I'm so glad I did. And it was a woman saying, are you on Luce? I said, yes. Oh, I have your daughter Hannah here. I said, no, you don't. My daughter is in a plane. She goes, well, no, she's not. She's here on the ground, and it looks like the plane has gone down. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And she's in the middle of Kansas somewhere. So I said, put her on the phone. And so she puts Hannah on the phone, and Hannah, of course, is in shock. She goes, hello, Papa, are you there? And at that point, my mind starts swirling, as you can imagine. I find out, I call my wife. We're on our way to the airport. We find out they're flying her, life-flighting her to Kansas City. So we get on a plane to Kansas City, and we show up that night about 11 o'clock, and she's in ICU and hooked up to every kind of wire and cord you can imagine, of course, and they don't know whether she's going to make it. She's inhaled so much smoke. And, of course, I was never so thankful as I was then for the medical industry.
Sure.
And she was, when somebody's in ICU in an accident like that, they don't even really look like themselves at that point, all wrapped up and bundled up and bandaged up and all of this. And it just really began a real journey. I didn't leave her bedside ever, except I went to the 4 funerals over the next week, but I would fly back every night to be with her, and my wife, of course, was there, and we were just trying to manage the situation. And she is intubated, so she couldn't talk, and she wasn't even conscious for a couple of days, and she could write some notes and stuff after that. And so nobody really knew the story until she came out of unconsciousness and began to write some of what had happened and that kind of thing. And ultimately, they were doing all kinds of TV, Good Morning America, Today Show, all kind of stuff, wanting to know about her health and her life and all of this. And I was doing these interviews. I said, well, I can't tell her story. She'll tell it when she's able to, and that kind of thing. And ultimately, she wrote a book about it. But it's a real journey of faith coming out of that for her and for us. But as you can imagine, everybody would say things like, "Oh, it was a miracle you're alive," and of course she's thinking, "Well, if God's passing out miracles, why are my friends all dead?"
Right.
It's hard to reconcile that.
Sure, she probably suffered from survivor's guilt, I would think, for a while.
Yeah, survivor's guilt, PTSD, certain smells would trigger her, all kinds of things like that. And then the other thing is that, oh, God must have a terrific plan. He's going to do something great through you. And well-meaning people say these things, but it doesn't make things lighter. It makes things heavier for the survivor. Like, I better do something awesome or I'm not worth living, kind of thing, save me for nothing. So we really have to be careful how we a lot of times well-meaning, we say things that we don't realize be very detrimental to the person.
Yes, I know. And I experienced that too myself coming through cancer. I was given a diagnosis when I was 27 that I could be dead within a matter of weeks, and God had other plans, and I'm just doing my best to try and live a worthy life and point people to Him. But yeah, it can be a burden to bear. Like, people ask me, well, how come you got healed and my loved one died, and you just don't have any good answers to that. It's just like, you just got to believe that God is loving and that He has a plan for us. And
exactly.
My best answer is that I guess that loved one's time was up. And like, maybe their journey in life, their purpose was completed, and mine wasn't. But I mean,
right.
Eventually I'm going to die too. Cancer didn't get me 15 years ago, but eventually we're all going to die of something.
Right.
But we want to make sure that we make the best of the time that we've been given, because tomorrow is not promised, and it's, it can be a burden at times. But I'm just thankful for God's grace, and, we'll do the best we can with what we've been given, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
What are some of the ramifications that have come from this accident, maybe both good and bad? I mean, I'm sure, having a few years of perspective behind you, there are some things you can talk about, even though you don't know the full totality of it. But is there anything you can point to that might be an encouragement to someone who has gone through a tragedy in their life?
Well, I think some of what I talked about before, where what the enemy meant for harm, God means for good, and even
Sure.
can't see it. If we trust in His goodness, then we'll end up being way stronger than what we thought we might be.
Mm-hmm.
And that trust that in the middle of, no matter how difficult it might be, that God's a good God, and He's going to take care of you, and He's going to get you to the other side of this thing. And I'd also just encourage people to get people around you that are full of faith, and that'll just, you don't have to go through this alone. You don't go through it alone, because the enemy picks up people that are, not in the wolf pack, the lone, you're not around people that can protect you or pray for you, etc. So
that's key. Yeah, when I was going through cancer, I had a wonderful support system with family and church friends and believers. And you mentioned something before, that people sometimes well-meaning say the wrong things. But for someone who's going through a tragedy like you went through with your family, what do you think would be more helpful that people would say or do for you, and that would help you to get through this situation?
Well, certainly really pray for you and try to really empathize. Say, I can't imagine what you're going through, but my heart goes out to you. And ask questions. Is there anything specifically I can pray for you about? And just empathy where they don't feel alone would be that sense that I've got somebody that, even though you don't have to have all the answers, you don't have to explain. I think we feel this need to explain, well, God's got a purpose. Or we actually will say things like scriptures that God works out everything for those, for the good, those who love God and called according to His purpose.
Romans 8:28, right?
It minimizes the pain. Like, so try to pretend you don't have pain, because God's going to work it out, rather than recognizing, you know what, you're in a really bad situation, and I empathize with you, and I don't have to have answers for you right now. Just to know that somebody really cares is enough.
That's awesome. Great advice. Friend, I hope you take that to heart. If you know someone who's going through the valley, that you can be there for them in the way that would be meaningful to them. Friend, you're listening to Divine Intervention Radio. Again, I'm your host, Daniel Fazina, and our special guest is Ron Luce. His book is called Resilient, Bounce Back Stronger No Matter What Knocks You Down. I highly recommend you pick it up. I'm going to post a link to it on our website, divineinterventionradio.com. And incidentally, Ron, what's your daughter's Hannah, what's her book's name, so people can check that out too?
It's Fields of Grace. Okay,
Fields of Grace by Hannah Luce. Check that one out too if you want to read the in-depth story of the plane crash and everything that happened with her. Ron, we just got about a minute left, but if there's someone listening to this broadcast right now who is struggling with doubt, maybe they don't even know if God is real, what would you want to say to them?
Well, we all go through scenarios where we have to ask the question, do I just believe what my parents believe or what kind of the culture believes or what my church believes, or do I really believe it in my own heart? And have I been honest with my own heart and my own questioning, asking Jesus questions? And I would just encourage you, whatever you doubt, whatever questions you might have, be very honest with Jesus. And I tell people this even from different religions. I said, if you don't believe that the God who created the world and Jesus is real, just ask him, are you real? And, are you good? And why did this thing happen to me? And show me that you're real. And just as simple and as honest as that, that's the beginning point of a relationship. A relationship begins when you just open up your heart, you begin to trust, and you begin to dialogue. It's like that with the person, and it's like that with the Lord.
Amen. Great advice. Ron Luce is our special guest. Again, his book is called Resilient, Bounce Back Stronger No Matter What Knocks You Down. You can find out more about him and the Global Jesus Youth Day at JesusGlobalYouthDay.com, JesusGlobalYouthDay.com. Ron Luce, thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate you taking out the time to...
I appreciate it. God bless you. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Take care and God bless. Friend, that about does it for another exciting episode of Divine Intervention Radio. Hope it has encouraged you to know that God is real and is still intervening in the world, changing hearts and lives, one heart at a time. Take care and God bless.
You've been listening to Divine Intervention with your host, Daniel Fazina. You can email Daniel at divineintervention@mail.com. That's divineintervention@mail.com. All programs of Divine Intervention are available online at divineinterventionradio.com. That's divineinterventionradio.com. Join us next time here on Divine Intervention.
Hi, I'm Kevin McCullough. You may know me from Fox News or Talk Radio. Have you ever wondered or pondered the idea of working for yourself or owning your own business? Using your skills to build a vision or a passion for your own life? Think about it. No boss, no politics, no compromise, no commute, no employees, no discrimination, and no educational requirements. Just building something positive that impacts people's lives. Well, you can get started owning your own energy company for less than $500. Would you like to know how? It's through a great company called Ambit. You can find out more when you go to freepowernow.com. That's freepowernow.com. Or if you're really interested in getting started, call my good friend Daniel Fazina, an independent energy consultant with Ambit. He's ready to help you get started on a brand new career. 205-55-AMBIT. That's 205-55-AMBIT or freepowernow.com.
Divine Intervention welcomes the support of Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants is a family-owned and operated Christian business serving their clients with quality accounting services for over 40 years, offering full-service accounting for any type of business, large or small, in any state of the union. Latirzo Associates, Certified Public Accountants, 12 Oak Street, No. 5, West Hampton Beach, New York, 11978. Phone 631-288-3334. That's 631-288-3334. Hey, this is Daniel Fazina of Divine Intervention Radio. The Bible contains some incredible stories of miracles and divine interventions. Jesus calmed a raging storm, healed paralytics, and even raised the dead. But are these types of events still happening today? The answer to this question, as you will see from reading my book, Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today, is an emphatic yes. Contained within the book is a collection of amazing true stories that attest to this fact. You will read the astonishing first-hand accounts of people who have been healed of paralysis, terminal cancer, and tumors through prayer. You will see the love of God powerfully transform the life of an Islamic terrorist. You will witness the liberation of the demon-possessed, the resurrection of the dead, and much more. Prepare to be awed and inspired as you experience Divine Intervention. More information about Divine Intervention, 50 True Stories of God's Miracles Today can be found at www.divineinterventionradio.com or by calling 800-247-4784. That's 1-800-247-4784.